Or life beyond Ecomms, as I'm calling it. So, why would a designer work at the Home Office? So it's a bit grey. It's not very designery. I was talking to a really old friend I hadn't seen for a long time the other day. She's a costume designer. And I said I worked at the Home Office, and she just looked a bit horrified and went, "What do you wear?" But we do lots of interesting things. Here are some of the things that our end users need to do, and that the Home Office has a role in. Not just the Home Office, so a lot of these transcend government departments and organisational boundaries, and people don't really care how government departments are structured. They just want to do the thing they need to do. So these are the type of needs that we're trying to meet and the things that we need to consider when we're designing sort of digital public services. So I'm going to talk a bit about sort of how we've got to where we are. I joined the Home Office in 2015, but I've sort of worked as a contractor in and around it at the Home Office and via GDS for about 3 or 4 years. So in 2012, BD, before digital, there was a thing called Ecomms, which I don't know anything about, but I imagine it as a sort of cracked and barren landscape where nothing ever happened. And then in 2012, a sort of digital strategy was born, responding to the government digital strategy and setting out what our exemplar services would be. So which of our high-volume, public-facing digital services we would improve to become digital by default. And for the Home Office, they were things like visas, passports, and e-gates at the time, which was sort of turned into something else. There was no Home Office Digital, so there were big technology programs that were building these things. So here is the front end of the old visa application system, which we are still replacing. Sadly, it's nice, isn't it? And to match it, this is what goes on behind it. This is the back end. That's it. That's my joke now. It's not that funny after this. But we started to. I say we. They. Hired in a team to take a user-centered approach to applying for a visa. This is the sort of visa exemplar service. And this was the first time a research-based approach had been taken. And they were supported by GDS, who helped find the right people, but also sort of put any existing talent from within the Home Office into that team, supported by the experts. And so over the course of 2013-14, people started to make a big thing about ways of working, and a lot of that was about Agile Delivery, so about more modern ways of building and deploying software. But at the same time, sort of all the show and tells would feature clips from user research, and we made a big thing of the dev team watching research as well. So user experience becoming something that everyone was involved in. It was still just one thing. So Home Office Digital was created in 2014 from members of some of those exemplar project teams, and a chief digital officer was appointed. And he set about appointing heads of profession, which included a head of user research and design. So that team had a couple of UX people. There weren't really any individual designers, no user researchers or content roles, but they sort of set a target to build a sustainable capability, aiming for sort of a third permanent, a third fixed term, and the rest contractors. So fast forward to 2017, we don't mention UX anymore. I'm saying this for Katie Arnold, who was supposed to give this talk. She hates talking about UX. She couldn't come because she had a baby last night, so her partner did. So you got me instead. But now we have 5 service designers, 35 user researchers, 14 content designers, and a bunch of interaction designers as well, each with a head of profession. And between us, we try to build the right things in the right way. Some of the things we do, we work on public-facing services like visas and passports, but also behind-the-scenes systems which help our staff share intelligence, manage applications, people applying for really big guns licenses, all sorts of exciting things, and to resettle refugees. So a really interesting range of services. And we work in multidisciplinary teams. And we try to apply the same standards and approach to an admin interface or an internal system as we would to a big public-facing service. And we don't talk about UX as a role because we think user experience is everyone's responsibility. So in service design, we've started to work on 4 of the sort of bigger services that we looked at earlier, the things that sort of transcend organisational structures. We've set out and are sort of designing guides to each phase of project delivery. So we've started with a discovery guide to help people understand what a good discovery looks like. We've made a common language to understand services and all their constituent parts. So it's a huge organisation. And it helps lots of different professions work together, from technical architects to designers and researchers. We have a blog post on that. I'll share that later for anyone who wants it. User research have a really strong focus on accessibility. So they have an access needs team with 15 specialists in individual access needs. They include 1 person in every round of testing and dedicate some rounds of testing solely to access needs. They do training in access needs, practical skills. They have an assisted digital team, so research and design support models, share learnings across the departments. They have dedicated participant recruitment and research services leads for ethics and data protection, and are sort of building a research repository, so making ways to share research a bit better. In content, we've worked really hard to get people involved earlier, and then we've now got content designers embedded in most teams from discovery, which is a sort of huge advance. We're upskilling them so they can get closer to the real content. So some of our content designers do front-end dev courses so they can work in code. We run content training for policy and business colleagues, pair writing, plain English, style and structure, working on a patterns library. And it's a massive organisation. You know, there's upwards of 30,000 people work across the Home Office. So there are lots of other people who do content that we need to sort of reach out to. So a lot of work is going into sort of building communities. And interaction design, there are 19 of them now, still growing. They run their own prototype kit workshop, upskilling designers, working on common design patterns, and have created a whole bunch of accessibility posters for accessible design that have been featured in sort of all sorts of blogs and translated into 5 different languages now. So we complain a lot that we're not getting anywhere, that we don't really do anything. But I was looking through this today and was like, oh my goodness, that's only in the last sort of 2 years that all of this stuff has happened. So it was good to do this exercise, There are some challenges. Growing quickly and working with people from different disciplines mean there are inevitably some challenges. Lots of those are organisational. Some of them are at team level around team culture and ways of working. So if you've been a UX designer in the private sector or in another world, you might be used to doing everything yourself. Might be you're used to a linear approach where, you do research and then design and then the content. Or you might be used to owning a part of that process and reluctant to share it or accept other people's opinion or input, So you can't be too precious. I was talking to a designer the other day about how we did this, and he sort of had this vague theory that it's like a 2-to-1 ratio that he works to. So he's just like, if I get 2/3 design and that's mine and that's my line, and then a third I'm sort of prepared to discuss with the other disciplines. The benefits of it, though, are, this better services for users. We know what good looks like. Most people I know are specialists in one thing. They are trained. They've studied. They've practiced. It's not that often we find someone who does more than one thing really well. You might get by. But generally, even if you can do 2 things really well, you probably don't have time to do them. So, we think specialising really works. We think that gives us stronger teams, and we think the stronger that becomes and the more we focus on those different specialisms, the more we attract quality people. Okay. So, how we've done it. Hiring the right people. We've hired some senior professionals. We try to be uncompromising on quality. I think the really important thing is to hire really good people. We sometimes get that a bit wrong, but it never pays off, So we hire the best people we can and try not to drop our standards when we're under pressure. Now I've lost my mouse here, so I might have, yeah, I have to make it up as I go along. Yeah, set standards, that works. Same thing again, really, if we don't compromise. Sometimes it's tempting to sort of let people do their own thing and work in the way that they want to. We don't want to restrict them. We want them to sort of be creative and do their thing. But actually, if we have a line that we're prepared to draw for standards, we can recruit to that and promote people for that. And again, that is another sort of really attractive thing, I think, when people come to us, if they know that we are really striving for a certain level of quality. And then building culture and communities. And we put a lot of work into this. We, you know, all of those individual professions actually have their communities. We work with people in the building, across government design meetings. We have regular crits, regular team meetings. Culture, it doesn't come easily, actually. I think it's one of those things that we're always being told, oh, you know, the research and design communities are sort of so mature. And I hear that quite a lot. I'm just like, yeah, but it's a bit of a slog, actually, because not everyone always wants to come to these things. But, you know, I think you have to put the hours in to do it. So what next? You know, what next for us really is just not just doing this stuff ourselves, but equipping. It's still a massive tech department that we work in. You know, there are lots of delivery teams out there with no user research and design input. So our next challenge is to get that. Equipping delivery teams to understand what good looks like, giving them more detailed guidance on what we expect to see happening, what outputs we expect from different phases of delivery, how they know when things aren't heading in the right direction. It's surprising how people don't actually see poor design or poor content. It's not something that really triggers until you get this thing that isn't quite right at the end. How to recruit and retain the right people, and, you know, just continuing training workshops. We have training budgets, which make a huge difference as well. So a lot of our teams now are doing formal qualifications paid for by the department, which really makes a difference too. And you know, really the next thing is making sure that we understand what those big pictures are that we talked about at the front. So what are the services? How do users understand them? What is it they're trying to do? And how do we make sure that the things we are building relate directly to one of those things? So that's me. Any questions? Thank you.